What if I told you that many high-income professionals are living paycheck to paycheck, more stressed and broke than people earning a fraction of their salary? It sounds absurd, but it's true. I've seen doctors, lawyers, and bankers making hundreds of thousands a year who are constantly anxious about money. Why? Because they spend as fast as they earn, sometimes even faster. Have turned lifestyle into a status competition, a bigger house, a flashier car, exotic vacations. Outwardly, they look successful, but their bank accounts are running on fumes. One of the most absurd realities in our world is people hustling to earn more and more cash just so they can burn through it faster. Let's start by asking, what is real wealth? Here's a hint, it's not your salary. True wealth is measured in time and freedom. In other words, how long could you maintain your current life if you stopped working today? If the answer terrifies you, no amount of income alone will fix that. I am Charlie Munger, Warren Buffett's investing partner, as I might say. Being rich isn't about having a high paycheck. It's about having control over your life. And gaining that control starts with rethinking how you spend and save today. In a deep dive, I'm channeling nearly a century of wisdom from Charlie Munger sitting, adding my own take and experiences study to show why getting rich slowly is the only surefire way to stay rich forever. This is not just a translation of Munger's ideas, but a fresh adaptation with new examples, stories, and a bit of my own perspective. So grab a seat. And let's break down these lessons one by one. Lesson number 1, the lifestyle trap vs. true wealth. Stop treating lifestyle as a status race. People go broke trying to look rich. I've met individuals who earn in a month what others earn in a year, yet they're drowning financially because every raise funds a new luxury. It's a vicious cycle. A high-paying job leads to a pricey condo, then a luxury car, expensive dinners, designer gadgets, an endless loop of earn more, spend more. They are performing success instead of actually achieving it. Meanwhile, I've known folks making a modest income who quietly save and invest, and they feel far more secure. Charlie Munger has observed this cold, hard fact over decades. The poor stay poor not because they don't make enough, but because they spend too much. That sounds harsh, but think about it. If you increase your spending every time you increase your earnings, you're running in place on a financial treadmill. You're working harder but not moving forward. Real wealth isn't about fueling a lavish lifestyle. It's about having options and peace of mind. Let me put it this way. Points, if you lost your job today, how long could you live comfortably on what you've saved? That length of time is your true wealth. It might be 6 months, a year, 5 years, or maybe just 2 weeks. That figure is far more important than whatever number is on your paycheck or your business card. Remember, income is not the same as wealth. Wealth is what you don't spend. Wealth is the ability to live freely without worrying for as long as possible. It's the freedom to take a risk, to change careers, or to retire with dignity. Now, I'm not saying you should live like a monk or never enjoy your money. But I am saying that if you're earning more yet feeling more anxious about money, something is fundamentally wrong. It usually means you've fallen into the lifestyle inflation traps, i.e. spending more just because you can. The way out is to redefine what wealth means to you. Instead of seeing wealth as things you can buy, see it as time and independence you can earn back. This mindset change is the first step to escaping the absurd race of more money, more spending. Lesson number 2, frugality, the discipline of freedom. Let's debunk a big myth. Frugality is not the same as being cheap or miserly. Frugality is discipline. It's about being in control of your desires rather than letting your desires control you. Charlie Munger often emphasizes self-control as a key to both investing success and life success. When he was a young man, he didn't rush out to buy a mansion even after he started making money. In fact, he once lived in a house shabbier than those of some of his own employees, and he was perfectly fine with it. As Munger tells it, he slept like a baby at night knowing that while he didn't own much, he owed even less. He didn't mortgage his future for appearances. That peace of mind was priceless. And look at Munger's business partner, Warren Buffett. Buffett still lives in the same house in Omaha that he bought back in 1958 for about $31,500. Think about that. A man worth tens of billions living in a humble home he purchased when Eisenhower was president. It's not a fairy tale or a cute anecdote. That's a deliberate choice rooted in rationality. Buffett once said that he has everything he needs in that house, and upgrading to a mansion wouldn't make him any happier. For him, a house is for shelter and comfort, not for showing off. This example isn't telling you to live in the same place for 70 years. It's showing that not upgrading your lifestyle at every opportunity can lead to enormous financial strength over time. Buffett's frugality is a form of intelligence. Money not wasted is money that can work for you elsewhere. Frugality at its heart is freedom from nonsense. It means refusing to waste your life chasing things that don't truly matter. It's saying no to the flashy purchases that give a momentary high but long-term headaches. It's finding happiness in simple, meaningful experiences rather than expensive status symbols. As an old saying goes, do you own your stuff, or does your stuff own you? When you practice frugality, you own your stuff and you own your financial future. Charlie Munger's philosophy is that if you can distinguish between your wants and your needs, you're on the road to real freedom. Most of us mix up the two. We convince ourselves that wants like the latest phone upgrade or that luxury brand handbag are needs. But once you start to see that you can be perfectly okay without indulging every urge, you unlock a superpower, the ability to save and invest consistently. Munger once quipped that a person's ability to be wealthy depends on his ability to say no to foolish expenditures. I couldn't agree more. Every dollar you don't spend on something dumb is a dollar that can earn you more dollars down the line. Think of frugality as strategic spending. You're not denying yourself joy. You're delaying and amplifying it. Instead of buying a fancy car now to impress neighbors, maybe you invest that money. Years later, the returns from that investment could buy you 2 cars. And by then, you might realize you never needed a luxury car to be happy anyway. Frugality is choosing the long-term win over the short-term thrill. It's the discipline of putting your future freedom above immediate gratification. And that is a key ingredient in the Get Rich Slowly recipe. Lesson number 3, spend less than you make, control what you can. Here's a fundamental truth in personal finance. You can't always control how much money you make, but you can control how much money you spend. The market might crash, your company's prospects might wobble, raises and bonuses come and go. Many factors that influence your income are outside your control. But your spending, that's on you. Charlie Munger and Warren Buffett both preach a simple formula for building wealth: defer gratification and avoid debt like the plague. In other words, live below your means and invest the difference. It's not flashy or exciting advice, but it works every single time. I've seen it with young people entering the workforce. Too often, the moment they get that first paycheck, they're already figuring out how to spend it all. New clothes, new gadgets, nights out, and poof, it's gone. They justify it by saying, hey, I earned it. Money is there to be enjoyed. Sure, enjoy a little, but if you blow through 100% of your income, or God forbid 120% of it using credit cards, you're guaranteeing yourself stress and struggle down the road. As Munger might put it bluntly, if you spend every dime you earn, don't be surprised when you're always broke. The key to growing rich is not magically picking the next hot stock or winning the lottery. It's spending less than you earn and investing the rest. You've probably heard it before, because it's true. You can't predict what the stock market will do next year, but you can ensure you save a chunk of your income this year. You can't control interest rates or inflation, but you can avoid racking up a huge credit card bill for stuff you don't need. Focus on what you can control: your savings rate, your budgeting choices, your habits. This creates a safety margin in your life. Charlie Munger likes to say he and Buffett never rely on forecasts or predictions to make decisions. They rely on preparation and prudence. For example, they keep a lot of cash on hand in their company, Berkshire Hathaway, not because cash gets a great return. It doesn't, but because it acts as an all-weather reserve. It lets them sleep at night and pounce on opportunities when others are panicking. This is something we can all emulate in our own way. Build your emergency fund, save up an opportunity fund. When you have cash and low expenses, you gain power. The power to say no to a bad job, the power to survive a layoff, the power to invest during a market downturn. One of the best pieces of advice is pay yourself first. The moment you get income, siphon off a portion for savings and investments before you pay any bills or buy any treats. Act like that money never existed to splurge. This forces you to live on a bit less than you earn and steadily builds your wealth. It's how you put your money to work for you rather than you always working for your money. Remember, wealth is what you keep, not what you spend. Someone driving a Toyota who has a hefty investment portfolio is far better off than someone driving a Bentley with a mountain of debt. Don't be fooled by appearances. A lot of those big spenders are one missed paycheck away from crisis. By controlling your spending, you're steering your own ship. You're immunizing yourself against many of life's financial storms, which brings me to lesson number 4. Real security is internal, not external. So many people chase the illusion of security. They think, if only I get a stable, high-paying job, if only the stock market keeps going up, if only the government keeps the economy smooth, if inflation stays low, if my boss is nice, then I'll be set, then I can relax. Let's list those out clearly. Folks often believe security comes from a stable, well-paying job, a constantly rising stock market, a friendly, supportive government and economy, low inflation, and low interest rates, a benevolent, generous boss or company. Here's the harsh truth Charlie Munger highlights. None of those things are truly under your control. They are external. And if your sense of safety relies entirely on outside factors, you will never feel 100% secure. Jobs can disappear, markets can crash, governments and policies can change overnight. If you build your castle on external foundations, a big enough storm can knock it down. Real security has to come from within, from your own mindset, skills, and financial resilience. Munger has said that security isn't in your bank balance, it's in your brain. It's in your ability to make good decisions, to discipline yourself, and to stay calm under pressure. Think about the people who freaked out during the 2008 financial crisis or the early 2020 pandemic market crash. Lots of supposedly wealthy, sophisticated investors literally lost sleep and panicked because they were over-leveraged and underprepared. Meanwhile, Munger and Buffett, who had built robust systems and kept their emotions in check, slept just fine and even found ways to profit from the turmoil. They never counted on the world to be kind. They prepared for when it wouldn't be. I recall in 2008, fear was everywhere. You'd turn on the television and see pundits yelling about the end of capitalism. Many people sold their investments at the worst possible time out of sheer panic. Munger and Buffett did the opposite. They had cash and courage. Buffett was famously buying stocks while everyone else was selling. He even joked that he felt like an oversexed man in a harem because there were so many bargains around. The result, those who panicked locked in their losses and never fully recovered, while those who stayed calm and patient or bought great assets at cheap prices laughed all the way to the bank a few years later. This is why Munger pounds the table on understanding risk and having inner fortitude. Explaining the storm won't save you. Building a sturdy shelter will. Here's a Buffett quote that sums it up, predicting rain doesn't count. Building arks does. In other words, you can't stop the rain, but you can make sure you have an umbrella or an ark for when it pours. Don't waste energy worrying about when the next recession or market crash will hit. It will hit someday, guaranteed. Instead, use that energy to make yourself crash-proof. Have a solid savings cushion. Avoid debts that can be called in at the worst times. Keep your skills sharp so you're employable, even if you lose a job. Know your risk tolerance so you're not overextended. Security is mostly about being prepared, not being lucky. Charlie Munger also talks about margin of safety, a concept he and Buffett borrowed from Ben Graham. It means always leaving room for error. If you think you can only just barely afford something, you probably cannot afford it. For example, if you can afford a $300,000 house with no wiggle room, buy a $250,000 house instead. Give yourself that margin. In investing, if a company looks like a good bet at $100 a share, they'd prefer to buy it at $70 to have a cushion. This mindset of building in buffers is key to real security. It's knowing that even if things go wrong, and eventually something always goes wrong, you'll survive and keep going. The bottom line is your sense of financial security should come from confidence in your own planning and restraint. If you have that, it won't matter who's president, what the Fed does, or whether the market had a bad week. You'll be okay because you've built a life that can take a hit and keep on ticking. Lesson number 5, avoid fragility, debt, and overspending make you weak. Charlie Munger has a few pet peeves in life, and at the top of the list are debt and overindulgence. Why? Because they make you fragile. They expose you to disaster when things turn against you. Munger once bluntly said that debt is like hanging dynamite around your neck. Maybe it won't explode today, maybe not tomorrow, but given a big enough shock, it will blow you up financially. This is especially true of the bad kinds of debt. High-interest credit card debt, borrowing to fuel a lifestyle you can't afford, or speculative leverage, like trading stocks on margin or taking out loans to buy volatile assets. It might work out for a while, but it only takes one hiccup, a job loss, a market downturn, and suddenly the bills come due. Living a flashy spendthrift life also makes you fragile. It's like building a mansion on a foundation of sand. It might look great in good weather, but a storm can sink it. I've seen people who seem to be on top of the world during boom times, new money millionaires throwing extravagant parties and buying sports cars and yachts. But when a recession hits or their business falters, they lose everything fast. Why? Because they had no reserves and plenty of liabilities. They were leveraged to the hilt, sometimes literally with loans, other times just with monthly expenses that far outstripped any sustainable income. They gave themselves zero room for error. Munger and Buffett intentionally live far below their means, not because they can't spend. They could buy whole islands if they wanted, but because they don't ever want to be in a position of weakness. They want to be in a position of strength always. Munger likes to quip that the first rule of compounding is to never interrupt it unnecessarily. Well, getting overextended with debt or spending is the way to interrupt your compounding. It can wipe you out, forcing you to start from zero just when you should have been reaping the rewards of patience. Let's talk about a famous Mungerism in this area, the 3 ways smart people go broke. Munger said there are only 3 ways a smart person can go broke: liquor, ladies, and leverage. Buffett later echoed this, clarifying that leverage debt is the big one. But the other 2, addictions and bad personal habits, can ruin not just your finances, but your life. The point is, no matter how intelligent you are, if you mess with any of these, you're playing with fire. We all understand how alcohol or destructive behavior can wreck a life, but people often underestimate how dangerous leverage is. Leverage, borrowing money to invest or spend, can amplify your gains and your losses. It's like driving a sports car. Fun when you're on a straight road, fatal if you hit a curb at high speed. In short, don't give yourself a chance to go broke. That means keep your debt to a minimum and your arrogance even lower. Munger hates overconfidence and complacency. He's seen countless hotshots in finance blow themselves up because they took on too much risk, convinced that they were the exception to the rule. They weren't. Nobody is. So avoid the trap of thinking you're invincible, whether it's with money or anything else. Instead of leverage, use leverage's boring cousin saving. Save money to build wealth rather than borrowing money in hopes of building wealth. It might be slower, but it's so much safer and ultimately far more sustainable. This applies to lifestyle too. Keep it simple and robust. If you run your personal finances like a well-run business, you ensure that no single shock can bring you down. Have insurance keep expenses flexible so you can tighten the belt if needed, and don't tie up all your money in things that can crash, like an oversized mortgage or speculative investments. By avoiding fragility, you set yourself up to not just survive bad times, but maybe even thrive in them, because you'll have dry powder to invest when assets go on sale. Munger's philosophy can be boiled down to this: prepare for the worst, and you'll do your best. It's not pessimism, it's realism, and it's why he absolutely detests financial fragility in any form, be it debt, high expenses, or lack of liquidity. The more resilient you are, the more confidently you can move through life's ups and downs. Lesson number 6, wealth is a test of character. Stay humble and rational. We've talked about getting rich slowly and safely, but here's a twist. Once you do become wealthy, the real challenge begins. Charlie Munger has witnessed a lot of people climb the mountain of success over decades, only to stumble and fall hard once they reach the top. Not because they suddenly got less smart, but because wealth changed them, or rather, it revealed them. There's a great saying: money doesn't change you. It just magnifies who you already are. If you're rational and disciplined, more money will give you more opportunities to deploy that rationality, as Buffett found. If you're reckless or insecure, more money might just amplify those flaws until they explode, as many lottery winners and sudden millionaires have learned to their sorrow. Munger often warns about the seduction of success. When people get rich, especially if it happens quickly or relatively early, they can start to believe they're invincible or infallible. They start thinking every idea they have is genius, that the rules don't apply to them, that if they made $1 million, then every move they make must be the Midas touch. This leads to arrogance and complacency, a deadly combo. History is full of once successful folks who got cocky, took absurd risks, or became lazy and blew up their fortunes. Munger, having lived nearly 100 years, jokes that the worst cases he saw were not poor folks, but people who thought they were untouchably safe and then got the rug pulled out from under them. I recall Munger telling a story about the California real estate boom decades ago. He saw plenty of paper millionaires in Los Angeles who suddenly had huge wealth on paper and started living like kings, fancy mansions, lavish parties, the whole 9 yards. But a lot of it was leveraged and predicated on the idea that the good times would never end. A few years later, many of those same people were bankrupt or forced to sell everything. They weren't ruined by the market, they were ruined by their own hubris. As Munger Riley noted, it wasn't brains they lacked, it was humility and self-awareness. The people Charlie admires the most aren't those who just made a ton of money. It's those who, after making a ton of money, managed to stay humble, keep their wits, and stick to sound principles. A perfect example is again Warren Buffett. Despite being one of the richest humans on the planet, Buffett famously still enjoys a simple $3 breakfast and those cheap steaks at his local steakhouse. He wears off-the-rack suits. He doesn't flaunt yachts or Lamborghinis. He could afford literally anything, but he's not interested because he knows that owning more stuff wouldn't improve his happiness or effectiveness. Buffett often says that he won the ovarian lottery by being born in America with certain talents, and he stays grateful rather than thinking he's some kind of deity. This level of groundedness is a big reason he and Munger have held on to their wealth for so long. They never assume they're all-knowing masters of the universe. They keep learning, keep their egos in check, and acknowledge that they can still make mistakes. Charlie Munger has a personal mantra: don't do anything that you know is stupid, even if others are doing it. That takes humility and independence of thought. For instance, during the dot-com bubble of the late 1990s, everyone and their dog was chasing hot tech stocks with no earnings. Munger and Buffett sat it out because it didn't make sense to them. They underperformed for a while and got criticism for being old school. But when the bubble burst, who came out on top? The guys who stayed rational and humble enough to admit they didn't understand that hype and wouldn't join the crowd. Similarly, when other investors were leveraging to the moon in the mid-2000s real estate frenzy, Berkshire Hathaway largely avoided it and thus sailed through the 2008 crisis relatively unscathed. It takes character to not be swayed by either furry euphoria. In your own journey, remember that money is a tool, not a scorecard for your ego, as you become more successful, and you will. If you follow these slow and steady principles, always remind yourself why you got here. Probably hard work, good habits, and a bit of luck. Don't let success make you lazy or overly daring in a foolish way. The same frugality and rationality that help you build wealth will be needed to keep that wealth. If anything, you have to double down on those virtues when you have money, because wealth will invite a lot of temptations, risky deals, flashy investments, people wanting handouts, the temptation to show off, and so on. Charlie Munger says his pride is not in how much money he's made, but in the fact that he never let money change his core values or thinking. He still hates stupidity. He still avoids extravagant nonsense. He still values being rational over being popular. In the end, wealth is a long exam in character. Most people eventually fail because they let their success inflate their ego or erode their discipline. But if you pass that exam by staying humble, keeping your head, and remembering that needing less is better than having more, then you truly will be, as Munger puts it, rich forever, both in money and in life. Lesson number 7, patience and perspective, slow and steady, wins the race. We live in an age of instant gratification. People want success yesterday. But here's the paradox in wealth building and many other things: slow is fast, going slow, being patient, and sticking to sound decisions will over time put you far ahead of the impulsive, the gamblers, and the trend chasers. Charlie Munger is a huge believer in the power of compounding, not just compounding money, but compounding knowledge and good habits. He often cites the example of Buffett's wealth accumulation to illustrate patience. Did you know Buffett didn't become a billionaire until age 56, and a huge majority of his net worth came after he turned 50? In fact, over 99% of Buffett's wealth was earned after his 50th birthday. That's the magic of allowing compounding plenty of time to work year by year. The gains stack on top of gains. And what looks slow at first becomes an avalanche later. Munger has quipped that the biggest illusion is thinking you can rush your way to wisdom or wealth. Wisdom isn't something you can just download like an app, he jokes. It comes from years of living, learning, making mistakes, and reflecting. The same is true of financial success. Everyone is tempted by the idea of getting rich quick. Who wouldn't want to turn $10,000 into $1 million overnight? But 9.9 times out of 10, those schemes end in disaster or disappointment. Think of all the people who jumped into some hype investment, whether it was dot-com stocks in 1999, house flipping in 2006, or crypto coins in 2021, hoping to multiply their money in no time. Some got lucky early, but many lost it all just as fast because they were effectively playing a casino game, not following a sound strategy. Fast money often teaches slow and painful lessons. On the flip side, the folks who appeared to be moving slow, sticking with boring index funds, or steadily growing their businesses, or prudently buying properties one by one, they weren't making headlines. But a couple of decades later, they're the truly wealthy ones. It's like the story of the tortoise and the hare played out in real life again and again. As Munger puts it, the tortoise wins, not because he's flashier or smarter up front, but because he's steadfast and doesn't self-destruct. I remember the 1973 to 74 M-market crash. Well, I read about it and learned from those who lived it. I'm not that old. Stocks fell dramatically and everyone was in a panic. Plenty of experts offered explanations for why it was happening: OPEC embargo, inflation, whatever. But at the end of the day, knowing the exact reason didn't help investors recover their losses. What worked was not panicking, holding on to good investments. or even buying more at the low prices and waiting for recovery. By 1980s, those who kept their cool had made a fortune from the rebound, while those who dumped everything at the bottom were kicking themselves. The lesson, impatience is expensive. Or as Munger might say, all the clever stock predictions in the world won't save an impatient investor. Patience is not passive. It's not about being lazy or doing nothing. It's an active choice to resist the frenzy of the crowd. It takes effort to sit still while others are jumping around. It takes conviction to trust your long-term plan when short-term noise is screaming for attention. Munger often describes their approach as masterly inactivity. When there's nothing smart to do, they do nothing. This is so counterintuitive in a world that glorifies action and busyness, but sometimes the smartest action is to not take a dumb action by staying calm, doing your research, and waiting for the right opportunities. You actually get ahead faster than if you were frantically trying every new thing that comes along. There's also an element of clarity that comes with patience. When you're not in a rush, you tend to see things more clearly. You're not desperate, so you're not as easily fooled or swayed. Munger says slow is smooth, and smooth becomes fast. When you move deliberately and thoughtfully, you make fewer mistakes, which means you don't suffer the setbacks that come from those mistakes. This smooths your trajectory, and over time you actually progress faster than the erratic sprinter who keeps tripping themselves up. It's like the investor who calmly puts money into solid investments during good times and bad, versus the one who's constantly trying to time the market by jumping in and out. The calm investor will likely end up with a better result and far less stress. So embrace being the slow one in a world obsessed with speed. Slowly getting rich feels boring until you actually get there and realize you've lapped everyone who took shortcuts. Remember, wealth gained overnight often disappears just as quickly, but wealth built over years through consistent effort and smart decisions is rock solid. By taking the slow path, you're not missing out. You're actually giving yourself the best shot at staying rich once you get there. And as the title of this lesson says, slow and steady wins the race, not just the race to wealth, but the race to a life well lived. If I could condense Charlie Munger's financial wisdom, and indeed life wisdom, into one phrase, it would be his motto: slowly get rich, and you'll stay rich forever. It captures everything we've talked about, living below your means so you can build wealth rather than just flash it. Being disciplined and frugal, finding joy in what matters instead of wasting money on what doesn't. Controlling your risks, avoiding stupid mistakes, debt, and fragile setups that could wipe you out, staying rational and humble, especially as you become more successful, so that your wealth becomes a foundation, not a trap door. Harnessing patience and the power of time, letting your money, knowledge, and experience compound quietly into something magnificent. Anyone can earn money fast or get lucky once, but to keep money over a lifetime and keep multiplying it, you need the mindset we've discussed. Wealth isn't a sprint, it's an endurance run. By going slow, you actually conserve your energy and creativity for the long haul, and that's how you end up winning. The prize isn't just a number in a bank account, it's the freedom, security, and confidence that come with knowing you've built something that can last. So the next time you feel the itch to compare yourself to someone else's flashy success, or you're tempted by a get-rich-quick scheme, remember the tortoise. Remember Charlie Munger's nearly 100 years of hard-won insight. Fast bucks often lead to broken dreams, but the patient, methodical approach of saving, learning, investing wisely, and controlling yourself that leads to a fortune that not only grows but stays with you. In the end, slow is smooth, steady is winning, and a clear, rational mind is true freedom. If you found value in this deep breakdown of Charlie Munger's wealth philosophy, do hit that subscribe button or follow like, depending on the platform, so you won't miss out on future insights. We've got plenty more to share, from Chinese wisdom to Western investment legends, all translated, adapted, and dissected for the young professional looking to get ahead. Next time on the channel, we'll dive even deeper into how to apply this get-rich slowly approach in today's world, I'll be sharing some of Munger's own personal experiences and seemingly simple but razor-sharp quotes. We'll break down real case studies, including how Munger and Buffett navigated financial crises and what not to do if you want to preserve your wealth. We'll tackle those classic pitfalls, remember the liquor, ladies' leverage we touched on, and show you how to avoid the fate of many who fell from grace. It's going to be an eye-opener into the underlying logic of lasting wealth, helping you truly internalize these lessons so you can put them into action. Stay tuned, stay rational, and as always, slow and steady wins the race. See you in the next episode, and until then, keep learning and keep compounding.